Greetings, my fellow savages. Welcome to the channel. Otherwise, welcome back. So, um, my wife and I watched a little bit of the debates between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris last night. I wasn't going to. I don't generally follow politics very much. I do vote, but politicians just don't seem like useful people to me. So I don't really care what they say or what they do, but I do pay attention to issues. I think everybody else should as well. And the most important thing you should be noticing, and if you haven't noticed, I guess I'm about to tell you, is that there's no politician on the planet, and there's no political party on the planet, and there's no political movement on the planet that's dealing with global heating. None. Zero. Now, I have a stand regarding global heating and the discussion thereof. And I take a pretty firm line on this. This is a hard line for me. And I don't allow myself or really anyone else to cross this line because we've got to stay focused on the matter at hand. And the line is this. You can talk about politics and economics and religion. Those are the big three abstractions. You can talk about those three all you want to. You can dedicate your life to them. But when we're talking about global heating, those cannot be topics. And global heating is physics. And it's either happening or it isn't. If it isn't happening, then we can go home. But if it is happening, then we have to deal with it. And we have to deal with it as physics. We have to deal with it as a thing. Like, if there's an avalanche and the snow is coming and you're looking at the snow and the snow is falling down the mountainside and you're in the path, you're like, well, I guess I have to deal with that. And your politics don't enter into it. And you can fall on one knee and pray to God if you want to, but that's not going to save you from an avalanche. You're going to die. And you can be the richest person in the world and have all kinds of money you could throw out, but that's not going to save you either because you're about to die. And an avalanche coming down the mountain right at you doesn't care about any of those things. It just cares about gravity, the laws of physics. And if you're going to be the little ant that gets in the way of an avalanche, snow or rocks or whatever else it might be, then you're going to be crushed because of gravity. And all of your favorite abstractions and all your money and all your wealth and all your power and all your prestige and all your whatevers, all this abstract monkey business, all your piety, all your praying 5 times a day to Mecca, all that stuff isn't going to save you from an avalanche. Running away might save you from an avalanche. Hiding in some, protected place might save you from an avalanche, possibly, maybe not, but nothing else will. You just have to say, well, that's a thing, and run away or hide or do something. You have to do something. Climb a tree, whatever you're going to do. You better do it quickly because this avalanche is coming and nothing's going to stop it because it's real. An avalanche is a real thing, and global heating is a real thing. Yeah, it may be slow. In some regards, even an avalanche is slow. Here it comes. How long is that going to take? Is it coming for me? Should I do something? Should I run? Should I hide? Should I run around in a circle? And then it hits you, right? And global heating is kind of like that. It's slow. You get lots of warning, and you can use your time, your warning time, to, pray or, throw money around or whatever you want to do. But you could use your time, how much time you have, to get to a safer place because of physics. So we had this debate, and the moderators picked the questions, and the moderators threw out there something about climate change. And Donald Trump is on the record, very established record on this, that he thinks that climate change is either a hoax, meaning it's not happening, and whatever scientists are saying, it's a conspiracy. Okay, what else are you going to say? The science is wrong, and anyone who claims that it's correct is a liar and a conspiracist. And why is there a scientific conspiracy? I don't know. Reasons, right? Why would the scientists hatch a conspiracy to invent global heating and fake all this data and fake everyone's thermometers and fake all the droughts and fake all the food crises? Why would they do that? How would they do that? Reasons. Okay. Or instead of being a hoax, It's a plot out of China. I don't know why China. I mean, India is actually a bigger country. There's a lot of people there, so maybe it's a plot out of India. But I think that Trump and his MAGA people can't even find India on a map. So it's not in their mind that India is a problem, but China is a problem, and China is communist, right? And India is not communist, that anyone's aware of, and China is communist, and so the Chinese are a problem. Never mind that the only reason they're doing as well as they are is because we exported all of our industries to China to avoid paying taxes and to get the cheapest labor we could find on the planet to make our iPhones and our whatever else, our, our Samsung watches and everything. Yeah, so if they're a problem, then they're a problem that we invented, but that doesn't matter. We're just going to blame them for global heating, or it's a hoax. And I've even detected him taking that stand in almost in the same sentence. It's a hoax. And if it's not a hoax and it's caused by China, it's like, well, choose one, because those are contradictory. It's a hoax. Well, actually, it's real, but it's caused by China. So even if it's not a hoax, it's not our problem. That just shows that you're not serious. Okay, fine. Don't be serious. You're a politician. You're an economist or whatever. You're a religious figure. I don't expect you to take any of this serious. These people don't have all their oars in the water. They're dealing with abstractions. And that's all they can think about. Money and wealth and influence and treaties and winning and war. And, they've been playing this game for thousands of years. They don't know another game. And then nature comes along, science, physics comes along and says, oh, well, now you got a problem. No, we can't have problems like that. We can only have problems in politics and economics and religion, because those problems we can solve because we own all those domains. We invented them, so we can solve those problems. So if your problem isn't in politics, economics, and religion, I don't want to hear about it. Well, that's just throwing a tantrum, because we have problems now in physics. The Earth dynamic system has been disrupted by our emissions of carbon dioxide, CO2. And that's just a thing. You don't have to believe it. Of course, you can believe something else, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's happening. Think whatever you like, I guess. That's what I tell people. Think whatever you like. I don't really care. It's real. It's happening. Deal with it. Oh, or don't deal with it. I don't really care, because probably most people couldn't do anything about it anyway. What's Donald Trump going to do about global heating? Really? And now to Kamala Harris. She was asked something. I can't remember what the question was. Doesn't matter. What are you going to do about global climate change? It's always couched in terms of climate change, because climate change is like the vaguest, most general way of approaching the problem. And everybody is still doing that. And I guess they'll do it to the bitter end. And climate change isn't even a thing. Everyone's climate is going to change. You don't even know how it's going to change. What's really the thing driving all this, driving the heat waves and the torrential rains and the floods and the droughts and everything else, what's driving all that, what's behind it all, is global heating. And maybe you'll get drier, maybe you'll get wetter, maybe you'll have more hurricanes, maybe you'll have fewer, maybe you'll have bigger hurricanes and fewer of them, whatever. And it doesn't matter. It's all heat. So you got to solve the problem of the heat. So she said this weird thing. It's been driving my wife crazy. I just throw up my hands. It's like, well, I don't know what you expected. And the moderator said something like, well, climate change is an existential crisis. And what are you going to do about it? What was that sound? Climate change is X risk. And what are you going to do about it? And she was like, we passed this bill. Green growth and green jobs and greening the economy and making everyone more resilient and blah, blah, blah. And furthermore, we've created, more jobs in industry than any part of the Trump administration ever did. And furthermore, we've pumped more coal and crude oil and natural gas through fracking than anybody has ever done. And we're going to do more of the same. And so if you kind of understand the issue, you understand that what's causing global heating, climate change if you prefer, I don't like to talk about that. The global heating is the thing. That's the physics. What's driving global heating is that we are burning fossil fuels. And when we burn coal, oil, and natural gas, that emits CO2 into the atmosphere. And once the CO2 is in the atmosphere, it serves as a greenhouse gas to heat the planet. Ta-da. So to a question that says, if, the nations of the world have identified global climate change as an X risk, what will your administration do about it? And what she's going to do is more drilling for oil and more fracking for natural gas. That was her answer. Like I said, my wife she's just completely flummoxed. It's like, wow, that was a great debate, except for that part. What kind of unhinged bullshit was that? You're gonna add more CO2 to the atmosphere, and that's your answer to too much CO2 in the atmosphere? That's your response, is to dig and drill more and put even more in the air? And this is kind of hard to explain why Kamala Harris was inclined to say that. And by the way, I don't know. Maybe someone later pulled her aside and said, Kamala, that was kind of unhinged. I don't know that anyone even did that for her. I don't think she even had that thought ever, even while she was saying it or anytime afterwards. That was a little bit unhinged. You're going to save us from global heating by increasing global heating? Help me understand this. Work with me here. Explain that part to me. And here's what it is. And I don't know how much of this is even cognitively, intellectually deliberate. Some of it may simply be political instincts. If you bring up that climate change is an existential risk, X risk, then and everyone kind of knows it's caused by the burning of fossil fuels. Then what you know is going to happen in the audience, including your opponent, who's like 20 feet away, right? He's listening. Is she going to say it? Is she going to say it? What's she going to say? She gets to go first. I get to go second. I want to jump on anything she says. Pounce, right? So you're going to say, yeah, it's an X risk, and we've done everything we can to try and address global climate change and make sure that no one loses their job and people are taken care of, and that insurance is affordable, and we want to make sure there's lots of funding for FEMA or whatever they want to say along those lines. Okay, they say all this stuff, but then because she has to get in front of the next shoe to drop, which is, and does that mean that your administration, because you're concerned about existential risk from global heating, that you're going to pull back on the consumption of fossil fuels, that you're going to stop drilling and stop fracking? Is that what you're going to do? Because that's what I think what you're going to do. Because if you're really concerned about this, and it's not a hoax, it's not the Chinese, and it's not aliens, okay, well then that's your answer, right? You have to stop burning fossil fuels, right? And that's going to destroy everybody and kill everybody and destroy the economy and drive all the jobs to China. And it's all China's fault. And now it's all your fault. And you did it. You pulled the plug. You pulled the trigger. Now you've destroyed everything because you decided we can't burn fossil fuels anymore because you agree it's an existential risk. But me, I'm Donald Trump. I think it's a hoax. And so as soon as I say it's a hoax, I'm off the hook. People are going to say, oh, great. Phew, he's not going to do anything about it. So party on, Garth. Okay. But if you come out, and you say, yes, it's an existential risk. We really need to do something. We've done a lot. We could do more. You have to say, you have to come right out and say, and I am not going to stop drilling for crude oil. And I am not going to stop fracking for natural gas and crude oil. And not doing that. I'm going to say this right up front. I'm going to say it a bunch of times. Not stopping the consumption of fossil fuels, not stopping that. I'm not going to stop that. I'm going to drill. I'm going to drill more. I'm going to frack more. There's going to be more fossil fuels. They're going to be cheaper, more abundant. Going to flood the market with fossil fuels. That's what you have to say. Because if you don't, then the guy who got off with just by saying, oh, it's a hoax, so don't worry about it. Don't ask me what I'm going to do. It's a hoax. Don't ask me what I'm going to do. I don't have to do anything because it's a hoax. That's how he gets out of the question. That's how a lot of people want to get out of the question. Global heating, that's not happening. You want to know what I'm going to do about it? I just said it's not happening. I don't have to do anything about it. I'm talking to you. I'm using words. It's a hoax. It's not real. What am I going to do about it? It's a hoax. It's not real. I can't do anything about unreal things. So he just skips. He just dodges the whole thing. And the problem with being an activist, and the problem with being a scientist, and the problem with being concerned about existential risks from global heating is then the people are going to say, okay, all right, you think you're so smart? You think it's not a hoax and you've got it all figured out. It's real and whatever, science, numbers, like, whatever the fuck. You think it's real. So what are you going to do? Stop burning fossil fuels? And the activists are in a real bind. It's for real. And when Kamala Harris comes out and says, and we're going to drill and we're going to frack and we're going to have more fossil fuels than ever before. And when she comes out and says that, it's because she knows that she has accepted that it's real. And she now has to address the reality because it's real. And the reality is we have to stop burning fossil fuels. And someone's going to say that. So you're advocating we stop burning fossil fuels? And she just jumps right on it. Answers that question right up front. Don't even come out and ask me if I want to stop burning fossil fuels. I'm going to tell you right up front because I know that's what you're going to do. You're going to come out and you're going to say, so you're going to stop burning fossil fuels? I'm going to tell you right up front, no, I am not going to stop burning fossil fuels. I am going to drill. I am going to frack. We're going to have more fossil fuels than ever. Gasoline's going to be cheaper than ever. And driving and flying and Disneyland, it's all going to work. It's going to be perfect. And more jobs and more auto industry and laying more asphalt and more freeway infrastructure and more and better and faster. And, she has to say that. She has to say that. She has to say that. I don't have to say that. I don't have to say that. I'm not a politician. My wife is trying to get you to buy me a coffee. I'll put the link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page. So I will tell you, this is how it is, boys and girls. This is how it is. Global heating, which is what it is. It's not climate change. You'd be lucky if that's all you had was a piddly climate change. Hell, your climate might even change and get better. Your problem is not climate change. Your problem is global heating. And everything's going to get hot. And that's going to hurt. That's going to be a big fucking problem for a bunch of fucking people, okay? Well, there are 8,000 million humans on the earth right now. 8 billion humans, 8,000 million humans. And if this planet goes to 10 degrees C, which it seems to be doing on greased skids, okay, it seems like it's almost baked into the cake at this point. If this planet goes to 10 degrees C above some pre-industrial baseline in temperature, then you're not going to be able to survive on the surface of the earth in about 2/3 of the places that people currently live. You're not going to be able to breathe the air on the surface of the earth without special equipment. It'll be like being on Mars, except hot. Mars is cold, and Mars has no atmosphere. But here, the atmosphere works fine, and it's going to be so hot that it'll burn your lungs when you try to breathe the air. You'll have to have special respirators that process the air, cool it on the way in. There you go. And the only way to avoid that, possibly you can't. I'll tell you right up front, I don't know that we can avoid that. That may be baked into the cake. There is some really good research. Doesn't get much airplay, as you can well imagine. But it looks good to me. And the estimates are, yep, we have evidence that that's kind of what's in the works now. We don't know how long it's going to take. It could take 100 years, but it doesn't matter if it takes 100 years or 10 years, right? There's going to be humans that can't survive on the surface of the planet Earth. Lots of humans. A good part of 8,000 million humans, like maybe even 99.9% of 8,000 million humans can't survive on the surface of the earth. Well, la-di-da. Well, that's just fear-mongering. No, it isn't. It's physics, bitch. Physics. The greenhouse effect. We've known about the greenhouse effect for 200 years. We know already that the greenhouse effect makes the surface of the planet 60 degrees warmer than it would be without it. So in other words, the planet would be at or near freezing almost all the time. The surface of the planet would be a snowball Earth, which has happened in the past, by the way, a long time before there was meaningful amounts of life, just single cell bacteria, but snowball Earth, there you go. And not enough greenhouse effect. So we love our greenhouse effect and we're enhancing it. And so the greenhouse effect is enough to make the planet 60 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it might otherwise be, which we like. That gives us what we call a temperate climate. We're evolved for that. works for us. And add another 30 degrees on top of that. And, that's what you do when you fuck around with the atmosphere. When you start pumping CO2, carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere, and you enhance the greenhouse effect, and you tack on another 30 degrees. When's that going to happen? I don't know. Someday. We're on our way. And we're, according to Kamala Harris, we're going to drill and frack and more and cheaper. And, we're not going the other direction. But she has to say that. Because if she doesn't come right out and say that, then people are going to say, well, if global heating is such an existential risk, then I guess you must be on board with no more fossil fuels, right? Because that's what's causing, supposedly, unless you think it's a hoax, that's what's driving the changes, right? In the planet Earth dynamic system, the planet's temperature regime is excess CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, enhancing the greenhouse effect. I mean, that's what's causing global heating, right? That's the science. So if you're buying the science that global heating is an existential risk and it's real, it's not fake, and well, then you must be buying the other part, which is that it's caused by fossil fuel consumption emitting CO2 into the atmosphere, right? Right? And if you're going to fight global heating and climate change, well, then I guess you're going to say we can't burn fossil fuels, right? I mean, just one point follows after the other. That's just logic. That's all it is. There's just consequences. It's real. We're causing it. We're causing it by burning fossil fuels. Therefore, we must stop burning fossil fuels. That's what you're going to say because you think it's real. Now, if you were smart, like Donald Trump, you'd say it's a hoax because then no one's going to come along, cross their arms and say, well, okay, Mr. Trump, so you think it's real. So he just says, no, it's a hoax. Oh, well, I got no further questions. I got no questions what you're going to do. You're not going to do anything. And I like my life the way it is. I like my fossil fuels. I like my driving and my flying and, groceries coming to my market in a 18-wheeler every morning at 2:00 in the morning. I like that part of my life. So, and since it's a hoax, you're not going to interfere with that, right? So great. Glad to hear it. Carry on. And the reason that Kamala Harris had to say that right away, she had to jump right on that. We're going to drill and we're going to frack and gasoline will be cheaper than ever. The reason she had to say that is because of politics. She wants to get elected to the office. And there's a bunch of people out there who will vote for her if she says that global heating, climate change, is an existential risk. And they'll say, wow, great. We have a politician who will actually say the words. That's a big step. I'm going to vote for her. And then there's a whole other bunch of people who should like to vote for her, who are going to say, well, if she's not buying into the idea that it's a hoax, well, then she's committing to fighting global heating. And everyone knows that the way you fight global heating is you stop burning fossil fuels. We've been hearing that all the time. I watch Fox News. They're saying that they're going to take away our cars and our gas grills, and so what are you going to do? What dangerous turn of events are you planning? And so she has to say, oh, I'm not going to stop drilling. I'm not going to stop fracking. It's more and is better. We'll double, triple what we're doing now, and cheaper gas and cheaper natural gas and cheaper utility bills. And man, we're going to go balls to the walls. That's what she has to say because she already admitted that it's real. And this is politics. And this is why politics is useless. Politics is useless. And every institution that is backed by politics is useless. Also, because it's really three things that are blocking us from doing the right thing. Every discussion that's backed by principles of economics, like growth in the GDP or growth in jobs or growth in profits or, less friction in the markets and all this kind of stuff, is going to say, well, we can't stop burning fossil fuels. We just can't. And politicians are going to say, we can't stop burning fossil fuels. We have to burn fossil fuels. The more, the better. Twice what we're burning now is not too much. And, that's what they have to say because they drank that Kool-Aid. And before I let them off the hook completely, I have to say, scientists are also trapped in this bind. There's a lot of scientists. Well, you don't get exposure to scientists talking about their field very much. If they talk about it in front of their peers, they're generally talking about data. charts and trends and analysis and algorithms and models and predictions and multivariate analysis and all this kind of stuff. Dry, technical, and if you're a peer of these people, then of course you listen and you ask questions, and it's interesting to you, and maybe you'll do some work in Earth system dynamics, and maybe you'll get a grant, maybe you'll be able to make some money, maybe you'll be able to feed your family, whatever. But they're in the same pit as the economists, basically, and really to some extent the politicians, because if a scientist ever comes out and says global heating is real and we must do something about it right now, then they lose their funding. And why would you endanger your career? Why would you do that? Politicians aren't endangering their careers. The chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank is not endangering his career. And economists are not endangering their career over this. Politicians are not endangering their careers. No one's endangering their careers. Why should the scientists endanger their careers? Why saying the thing? And then, not taking the next, and then actually taking the next step of saying we have to stop burning fossil fuels. So you'll hear scientists, and you can find them on YouTube all the time if you know the names of the people we're talking about. Johan Rockstrom and Michael Mann and a bunch of others, where they talk a good talk, and climate change is real. Yes, and it's caused by humans. Burning fossil fuels, very good. Yes, continue. And but when it gets to the end, and they always wait till they're just at the end when they're kind of running out of time, right? Oh, and just let me say right away that the way we fight climate change is with, yes, you're finally going to say it, listening, okay? And then they say things like we have to be fair in our distribution of energy, and we have to make sure that the third world has their chance to develop, and we have to make sure we float all the boats and be as equitable and fair as we can about our consumption of fossil fuels. And you're like, so it's an existential risk, and we're not going to stop. Because if they said we have to stop, like I say all the time, like I just said a minute ago, like I'll say again in 30 seconds, if we start saying things like we have to stop, then you lose your funding. That you lose your job at the university, you lose your job at the government. They say, you just can't talk like that in public. Well, that's the truth, but you can't say it. You can say something else. Say something else about climate change and global heating. Say that it's a great risk and future generations are going to have to solve it. You could say that. You could say we need to innovate and future generations can invent new ways to solve the problem. You could say that. You can say that it's going to be a problem hundreds of years from now and it's a problem for future generations. You can say that. But you can't say we have to solve it today, because we're not going to solve it today, because we don't want to. So don't say that. Say something else. Say something very vague. Say something that no one will disagree with. Say something that isn't saying anything at all. That's what they do. And the ones that don't do that don't end up giving a TED Talk. And the ones that don't do that don't get invited to panels of esteemed scientists talking about climate change. And the ones that don't, say the nonsensical, completely meaningless things, the future generations will solve it using innovation and technology that doesn't exist. The ones that don't say those things at the end of their talk don't get invited back. They don't get funded. They lose their job. They end up washing cars. So you never see them. The first few times that they say the wrong thing, they're out. They're gone. They're living under a bridge somewhere, homeless. So they take example from the few people that lost their jobs and got turned out into the street and became homeless or washing cars for a living. And they learn, and they don't say the thing. They try to end on as upbeat a note as possible. And that's how it works because of economics. Scientists are really embedded in economics because that's how they make a living. I don't make a living off of science. I don't. So I can say whatever I want to say. We have to stop burning fossil fuels with immediate effect. I've said that on almost every single video that I've made on YouTube. We must stop burning fossil fuels with immediate effect. And that won't save us, by the way, because it's almost too late to have that have any effect whatsoever. Nevertheless, we must do it. We must do it and hope for the best. Because that's all we can do. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. If we keep burning fossil fuels, things just get worse. And they might get so worse to a point where the only place you can live is is in Mars, and that's why Elon Musk is headed for Mars, because he knows what I know. This place is essentially scheduled, planned to become uninhabitable, and he doesn't want to be here when that shit show goes down. He wants to be on fucking Mars, watching it burn through a fucking telescope. He wants to be on Mars, watching the Earth from a distance with a telescope as everything catches fire. Probably in 15 or 20 years. That's his plan. Some other people will just be in Earth orbit. Some people will be on the fucking moon. And they'll have their own food and their own whatever. And they'll be far away from the nuclear wars and the battles and the refugees. And they'll be far away because no one ever wanted to say, just like Kamala Harris couldn't say, we're going to stop burning fossil fuels. Because the politicians will never say that. And the economists will never say that. I say it because it's the truth. We must stop burning fossil fuels. Oh, yeah. Okay, fine. So you're going to come out and say it. Well, it's easy for you to say, right? Because you're not the one that has to fix it. Well, I'm going to be tortured to death in the same way that everyone else is going to be tortured with the heat and the starvation and the riots and the refugee armies blackening the landscape as they try to escape from the heat of their own country. Yeah, I'll be dealing with it just like everybody else. But nevertheless, it's true. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. Yeah, but if you stop burning fossil fuels, then the economy collapses and you won't have money to buy food. And what do? Oh, you'll die. Well, then we have to stop. You have to keep burning fossil fuels. Is that what you're saying? No, you have to stop burning fossil fuels. Well, if you stop burning fossil fuels, we won't have any food or clothing or shelter or water or sewer treatment or medicines or internet or electricity or anything. We'll all die. That's right. But if you don't stop burning fossil fuels, you're going to die anyway. And the planet will be uninhabitable, which is even worse. I mean, having a bunch of people die, but the planet is still habitable is one type of outcome. A planned demolition, controlled demolition. And having an unplanned, uncontrolled demolition means you lose a lot of people and the planet is uninhabitable. Those are your two choices. Well, no, we can probably innovate. Someone can innovate in the future. Okay, well, then you're just going to let someone else not solve the problem. You're not solving the problem. They're not going to solve the problem. Their excuse for not solving the problem is that if the problem had a solution, you would have solved it, but you didn't. So I guess there is no solution. So we're not going to try and solve it either. And that's how it's going to play out. And the further we get down the road, the less options we have for solving any problems of any kind. And at some point, the planet could just get so hot that you can't even be on the surface. Now, what are you going to do? How do you solve any problems at all when you have to live in a hole in the ground? Because it's so hot up there. You just die. Plus, bonus, the surface of the Earth is uninhabitable. And now you're dead. Well, you can't know that. Yes, I can. Physics. The laws of physics. That's what's going to happen. And there are a few people on this planet, not many. I am one of maybe a dozen who are willing to tell you, oh, yeah, you're going to die. We really fucked up. We really screwed up, people. This is as bad as it could possibly get. This is so bad. And this is like unimaginably bad, except I work really hard to imagine it. And when I ring the bell and I'm really understanding what's going on, then yeah, I can tell you, oh boy, yeah, wow, we need to stop burning fossil fuels and then take our hit, whatever that is, economic collapse, global war, nuclear exchange, whatever it is. We have to stop burning fossil fuels with immediate effect and take our hit, because the alternative is nature kills us and renders the planet uninhabitable. Wow. Okay. That's better. I'll tell you how it's better. It's called the trolley problem. And that's why we're headed towards the default. The default is you do nothing. If you're like Kamala Harris, you promise not only to do nothing, but to do more of the same. And here's the trolley problem. Here's the problem. And this is well understood. This is human psychology. People have been studying this for decades. They've been studying this for decades because they just can't believe it. They keep getting the same answer from people when they study people and how they handle problems like this one, global heating. and they just don't like the results. And so they keep doing experiments with the trolley problem. Here's the trolley problem. You're the driver of a trolley. And I'm probably going to get this wrong. It's kind of complicated, but I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. You're the driver of a trolley, and it's on tracks. That's what a trolley is. It's like a bus on rails. So you're on this trolley, and the track goes straight ahead, but just up ahead of you, there's also a track that goes off to one side. So you're looking up ahead. You're driving the trolley and on the track, and you see up ahead of you, there's a bunch of people on the tracks. Why are they on the tracks? Maybe their car stalled, right? And the car is stalled on the tracks. And if you keep going this direction, you're going to hit that car full of people. And so you're going to take this side track. But you also notice on this side track, there's a whole crowd of people milling around on the side track because they think it's not in use. And so it's like, oh my God, I can hit this car full of people here, or I can deliberately veer off this track and go through this crowd of people, and maybe they get out of the way, maybe they don't. And so what do? They go straight. Why? What made you choose to go straight? I mean, that is one of the two answers. So if you had to pick one, you picked one. But why is it that everyone decides to go straight? Because they don't want to be responsible. Because if you're just driving, you're just the drone driver. You're just la-di-da-da-da on your cell phone driving the trolley, and it's on the track anyway. And all you have to do is stop it if there's something on the track. And then there's something on the track, right? And so you don't have time to stop it. It's just right there. But you could veer to the other track. But to veer to the other track, you'd have to do something. And so later on, when some authority figure came along and said, well, you just killed a bunch of people. You just drove your trolley into a crowd. Why did you do that? Well, because there was something on the other track. So you just thought you had the authority to just drive through this crowd of people. Well, no, I had to pick one or the other. And I thought the crowd of people maybe could get out of the way. Well, did you ever think that they wouldn't? And so what do? You don't deliberately with decision drive your trolley through a crowd of people. Because that would be disaster and you'd be blamed for it. And rightfully so. You did take that track and you did drive your trolley right through that group of people. And if anyone got hurt, that's your fault. Undeniably true. And the fact that there was people on the other track is not a mitigating factor. You chose to do that. You're a murderer. You saw the people and you knew that maybe they might not be able to get out of the way, but you chose to get on that track anyway. So that's it. You go to jail for life. And you're a bad person besides. And everyone thinks you're a monster. And so what do? You don't do anything. You ring the bell, you apply the brakes, you do all this stuff, and you go through the car. And when someone comes along and says, wow, you drove your trolley through a car. Yeah, I couldn't stop in time. The trolley weighs too much. And, the steel wheels, the steel track, they just kind of slide. And the car was there. And I couldn't go that other way. There was a bunch of people. So I just went straight ahead and I hit the car and I killed a bunch of people. And, but I didn't do anything. I did nothing. I just did what I'm supposed to do. This is the track. This is the route. This is where I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to go straight. I'm not supposed to go over here. I'm supposed to go straight. And so I just did that. I didn't do anything. And that car was on the tracks and I couldn't stop the trolley because it's too short and it's physics. But otherwise I did nothing and you'll get off. If you do nothing, you pay no price for it. And even if the car or the bus had more people in it than the one person or the two people you hit by driving through a crowd, more people died if you went forward and then maybe died or couldn't get out of the way quick enough. And so it doesn't matter. There could have been a bus full of 50 orphans going to school and it wouldn't matter because it's not your fault. The bus was on the tracks. You hit the bus because it was on the tracks. That's not your fault. And you couldn't stop the trolley with the brakes because it can't stop that soon. So that's not your fault either. It's all physics, right? And it's the bus driver and it's the orphans. Why were they even in a bus? Why are they going to school? It's their fault for being in a bus going to school. They don't have to go to school. They don't have to go to school today. They all chose to go to school today. So they chose to be on the bus and they chose to stop the bus on the tracks. And I didn't choose to run into it. I just did. That's the trolley problem. And so politicians and economists and religious leaders and spiritual leaders, they're never going to do anything. They're just not going to do anything. Because anything they do, they can be blamed for. So you chose to leave fossil fuels in the ground. Yeah. Did you know that would blow up the global economy? I did. So you're a monster. Well, no, we had to do something. And I really advocated for leaving fossil fuels in the ground. And if we do that right, then we'll actually have less harm down the road than if we just went forward doing nothing at all and just took whatever randomly came our way. We chose to coordinate the shutdown of the fossil fuels and thereby save as many people as we can. Yeah, but you chose that. Yes, I did. Well, then you're a monster because you destroyed the economy and you killed a bunch of people, and all these people weren't prepared. And well, we had to do something. And so you do nothing. No, you don't have to do something. In fact, the easiest way to do nothing is to just claim it's a hoax. It's not real. It's not real. Never happened. And if it's a hoax and it's not real, then later on, if someone says you did nothing, you can say, yeah, because I thought it was a hoax. But everybody knew it wasn't a hoax, but I thought it was a hoax. And I'm a politician. I was president. I was vice president. And, I was head of the Federal Reserve Bank, and I was head of the UN. And I thought it was a hoax. So, of course, I did nothing. If you want me to do something, you'd have to convince me that it's not a hoax. And you didn't do that. So it's your fault that I did nothing. Your fault, because you didn't make me understand. You didn't make me believe it was real. You see how they do this? It's a hoax. It's not real. Or it's an existential risk, but we don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. It's any way that you can deflect. And later on, if they say, well, you should have known. And by the way, they won't come along and say you should have known, right? Because they'll be dead. I mean, who's going to question you when the world is 10 degrees C above a pre-industrial baseline? And it's 140 degrees during the day outside, and it's 120 degrees outside at night. Who's going to come along and say, that's your fault? No one's going to do that. Everyone's going to be too busy trying to survive. So you skip. You get to have the big party. You get to be the one who doesn't disrupt the fossil fuel party. And then when the end comes, everyone's going to be so busy scrambling around looking for food and water and shelter, basically underground, that they're not going to be coming for you. And so if you're a politician and you're having to admit on the one hand that yes, global heating is an X risk, then you come out right back out and say, but we're going to frack and we're going to drill and we're going to, until the cows come home, then you're basically saying, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to take us on the straight track. I'm going to admit there's a risk because that's true. I want to say truthful things, and I'm going to keep us on this straight track of business as usual, because that's what's going to make most people happy. And so when she was asked, what do you think about this? She said, it's real, and I'm going to drill and frack. And most people will say, great. Some people will say, great, she agrees that it's real. That's good, I'll vote for her. And some other people will say, well, she says it's real, but more importantly, she says she's not going to do anything about it, so I'll still vote for her. And some of them, of course, will vote for Donald Trump because he says it's a hoax. And that sounds even better. And because then they can believe it's a hoax because Donald Trump said it was. And then they can take the straight path and do nothing and think nothing and not take any responsibility. No one could convince Donald Trump or me that it wasn't a hoax. So that's their fault. I didn't do the right thing. That's not my fault. That's their fault. I believed it was a hoax. No one explained it to me in ways I could understand and agree with that it wasn't a hoax. So I believed it was a hoax. So don't blame me for not doing the right thing because I was led to believe it was a hoax, which was the right answer for me because I didn't want to do anything anyway. I wanted to have a big party burning fossil fuels. So the hoax is the right answer for me. And there'll be people who vote for Donald Trump because he says it's a hoax. And they were like, that's the answer. So if he's going to be president, he'll just stay for 4 years or 8 years or 12 years or however long he can stay in office. Or whoever comes after him. And everyone who comes after, everyone whose name is Trump, who's ever president after him. And it'll be a long string of Trumps, his sons and his grandsons and his nephews and his everybody else. And they'll all say the same thing. Global climate change is a hoax. Global heating is a hoax. So since it's a hoax, no need to talk about it. And we'll let the scientists do their research because it's harmless and they're so cute. And, but we're not going to do anything about it because it's a hoax. Problem solved. Well, no, problem not solved. Because it's not a hoax. It's real. It's physics. You're going to be crushed by it. And I guess because you think it's a hoax, you won't even know what's crushing you. Is that a better situation? You just never knew. Maybe it is. Maybe that's the best situation going forward. People never knew what hit them. Never knew what hit them. Just one day they don't wake up. For a couple of days, a month, two, part of a year, things get tight. There's not enough food. You blame people for stealing the food. Yeah, of course, you're not going to take responsibility for not, being on the right side of history. And they'll just blame the immigrants and blame the foreigners and blame the people of color and blame the trans that there's no food on the shelves. And it's a conspiracy, and it's all tinfoil hat, and it's the Chinese, and and blame everybody, and then you die. Then you die, and you felt vindicated and important, and narcissistic personality disorder was never addressed, and then you died. Maybe that's the best answer for some people. Lie and die, and take your lies with you. It's a strategy. Never admit it's a problem. Never do anything about it. Party like there's no tomorrow. Burn your fossil fuels, frack, drill, whatever, and then die. Because that solves your problem too. I think that's pretty short-sighted because we would like to keep some human life on Earth. I think that would be a good idea. And other life forms that we kind of like, that are probably going to go extinct along with us, most likely. I mean, I will still have rats and cockroaches, scorpions, and, a couple of little things like that. But the great diversity of the biosphere will be basically gutted, flattened completely. And that's bad. And destroying 8,000 million humans and leaving maybe 8 million or maybe even 800,000 left on the planet living in tiny little villages or eking out an existence in the last few places that are still habitable, wherever random places those turn out to be. And those people get lucky. They win the lottery, right? Because they happen to be in the right place at the right time whenever all this shit went down. Okay, so there's, 800,000 people left, 1/10 of 1% of the current population. And they're not going to talk about any of this. They're going to talk about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and they're not going to talk about the fossil fuel industry. They're going to talk about harvesting the wheat, getting the corn in the silo before it rains. That's what they're going to be talking about. Building the walls higher to keep the animals out, the wolves. Or they'll be living underground, more likely. More likely, they'll be living underground, trying to find days when it's not too hot that they can come out of the ground like a gopher and forage on the surface for food before they have to retreat back to their hole in the ground because it's going to be too hot. Probably do most of their work at night when it's only 120 degrees because global heating has run completely out of control. Who's really going to care at that point? Nobody. So the safe bet is to do what Kamala Harris actually did. Recognize that it's an existential risk, recognize that it's a threat to civilization and humans, and then immediately say, to answer that question, because it's coming, that, I'm going to frack and drill, and my administration will have more fossil fuels than any administration on Earth. Any country and any past on Earth, we're going to have more. And if it seems unhinged, like, how can you hold both those thoughts in your head at the same time? She's a politician. And we don't elect scientists to be president because they're not going to do that bullshit. Although someone like Michael Mann probably would hold two completely contradictory thoughts in your head at the same time. But I wouldn't do that. You couldn't do that. You couldn't get me to say things like that. Say, oh yeah, climate change is real. Oh yeah, it's going to kill most of you. Most people in this room. Yeah, I'd say nearly all of you are going to die due to global heating sometime in the next 30 years. Except the really old ones, they're probably going to die of, coronary heart disease in the next 10. But everyone else, yeah, you're going to live. I see some 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds. Yeah, you're going to die in a heat wave. They're not going to elect me president. Although that's the truth. That's the truth. They don't want to hear it. So yeah, Kamala Harris, she said what she was supposed to say. And she said it pretty well. And she didn't hesitate to say it. And, Donald Trump will say it's a hoax. And that's another political thing you can do. And they're all avoiding the trolley problem. They're doing nothing. And they're not insinuating that something must be done. And they don't want anyone doing anything. We're all on the trolley together and we're all going on the straight path together. And if we hit a bus full of orphans, well, then that's not our fault. That's the orphans' fault for being in a bus stuck on the tracks. That's their fault, not our fault. We just took the track we were assigned to take. It's the same thing with fossil fuels. We're just going to burn the fossil fuels because that's how you do it. You don't not burn the fossil fuels. You burn the fossil fuels. And if there's some orphans on the tracks ahead of us in our fossil fuel trolley, then they get run over. And if it's 8,000 million orphans, in the Earth dynamic system bus, run them over. Because that's how this trolley runs. It runs on the straight track. And we're not going to stop doing that. Because that would require us to do something. And you don't do anything. Ever. Because if you do something, someone's going to blame you for the bad thing. Even if the bad thing is better than the worst thing, it's still a bad thing and you'll get blamed for it. And so no one will do anything. That's what's going to happen. And 8,000 million humans are going to die in a fire. There you go. So that's Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I didn't watch too much of the silly debate. It's mostly just Donald Trump glaring and, being self-righteous, and Kamala Harris trying not to, lose her followers. And I wish them both good luck. I don't really care who wins. Neither one of them is going to do the thing. They're not going to pull the handle and get us off of this course that we're on. They're not going to do it. So since I have one problem, and it's global heating, then as far as I'm concerned, the entire political process is of no consequence. It's no consequence at all. Elect whoever you want to elect. And maybe you'll get a fascist government. Maybe you'll get a broken government. Maybe you'll get a bankrupt government. I don't know what you're going to get, but it's all just money and politics and economics and monkey business and who's got the most bananas. And it's just like, and physics is going to murder you. Physics is just going to murder you people. And you're still running around trying to get the most bananas and chimping out. And it's just, physics is just going to flatten you. Okay, I guess. Should I run for president? How far do you think I would get? Don't forget to like the video. Even if you don't like it anyway. Don't forget to subscribe because I do this every so often. And I keep swearing I'm going to stop doing it, but I have too much fun. So here I am. Tweaking you people again. If you want more of the same, let me know.